Hey, welcome back here. Another day of virtual school. Happy Friday. Hopefully this will be the last day of virtual school, at least due to COVID. Here we are, gonna do completing the square some more. Very important slide here, this procedure for completing the square. We're gonna do a couple more examples here, and I'll tell you your assignment at the end of the video here. So, anyhow, make sure you are well aware of this procedure, okay? So the first thing you got to do is make sure the equation looks like x squared plus bx equals c. There can't be any number in front of x squared. If there is, you have to divide all the terms by it. All right. And then to complete the square, that's this number 2 part here, you have to add to both sides of the equation b divided by 2 squared. So you divide b by 2, then you square it. All right, and then after that, you can factor it. You make a perfect square trinomial, so you rewrite it as x plus b over 2 squared, and then you solve the equation by taking the square roots of both sides. So let's jump to example number 4 is the one we left off on. So here we are. Let me explain this one for you a little better. Okay, so here we have x squared plus 6x plus 12, and as you see, it's not written in the correct form yet because the constant term should go over to the other side, so I just subtracted it from both sides and move it over there. And I left a little gap here because, well, this is not a completed square yet. We have to complete the square now. And so we're on step 2 of those procedures that I was just talking about. So you have to take this middle term, take the coefficient, which is 6, divide it by 2, and square it. So what is that? Oh, you got it, 9. Very good. All right, so we're going to add 9 to both sides. Okay, so remember it's b over 2 squared. Okay, and that allows us to factor. Okay, the signs are both the same and they're both positive. And so to get 6x in the middle, it would be x plus 3 times x plus 3, or we could just write it as x plus 3 squared. And that allows us to solve the equation by taking the square root of both sides. So next we're going to apply the square root to both sides. And when we do this, we have to remember to put the plus or minus sign in. Technically speaking, as soon as you write the square root, you should be putting the plus or minus sign there. Okay, and now we have the square root of a negative 3. So we pull out an I. And then we want to get x by itself, so we subtract 3. And really that's about all we can do here for this problem, okay? So remember the key to completing the square is to get the two x terms by itself and then do b over 2 squared, okay? And b here is 6. So we did 6 over 2 squared, which gives us 9. All right, let's look at a tougher one, which is example 5 here. This is the first problem where x squared has a number in front of it, okay? So first, let's move the x terms to the same side. All right, and now, before we go any further, we need to isolate x squared. Okay, get rid of the 2. So what we have to do is actually divide every term by 2. Okay, we have to divide both sides by 2, which divides every term by 2. Okay, so this is what it would look like when we divide everything by 2. Now, in this particular one, b over 2 squared is a little bit harder. Okay, because we have 7 halves divided by 2 squared. Okay, well, 7 halves divided by 2 is really 7 halves times a half, which is 7/4. Okay, when you have a fraction over 2, you really just times that fraction, denominator of the fraction by 2, and that's squared. Okay, so the number that we have to add to both sides is, when we square a fraction, we square the top, so it's 7 squared is 49, and we square the bottom, so 4 squared is 16. So we have to add 49/16 to both sides in order to do this problem. Okay? But what I did for shortcut, I guess, is I just wrote 7/4 squared here, and I did put the 49 over 16 here, because I'm going to have to add it to a half, which means I'll have to find a common denominator to do that. All right. But the reason why I wrote this like this is because it will help us factoring. Because remember, when we are factoring a perfect square trinomial, the one term is always the square root of c. Well, if it's something squared, the square root of something squared is just that something. So when we factor it, it would look like the square root of 7/4 squared is just 7/4, okay? And then here I came up with a common denominator. All right, and then I added my two fractions together. Next thing we're going to do is try to get rid of the square, because we got a binomial square, so we square root both sides. All right, and this is about the time where we got to remember to put the plus or minus sign in, okay? Legally, that's what we should be doing here when we put the square root on both sides. Okay, and then we have the square root of 57 over 4, because the square root of 16 is 4. Okay, so I took square root of 16 and made it into 4. I'm going to subtract the 7/4 to both sides, and then really that's about it I can do with this. Square root of 57 is, I think, a prime number, okay, but I know you can't take out any perfect square factors from that. So anyhow, that is it for this. Hopefully now you can do a harder one with completing the square. As for your assignment, well, here are 4 problems that you might want to write down, and I want you to do it on paper. I want you to show work, and yeah, please follow the completing the square procedure that, well, I've talked about in this video. So try to do these 4. If you don't have any work for them, come Monday, well, you're going to lose points, okay? Because, you know, if you follow the procedure, it's not so bad. You just got to get x squared plus bx, and then you got to complete the square and then factor it, okay? And all the problems are kind of the same. Just follow those steps. All right. Have a great weekend, guys. I hope to see you Monday. Bye-bye.